Anyway, the importance of intellectual property. Why must we know about IP? Well, it's dry, but it's important because they are the building blocks for franchises. They're essential for business growth. They offer protection, commercial value, and they form like a legal framework to protect intangible assets like brands, inventions, creative works, business secrets. I know it's confusing. I'm just throwing out terms out there. Let me break it down to something a bit more simple. The 4 E's, right? This is something that I wish my law professors gave to me. It's a simple way to understand IPs, and we break it down into just 4 basic E's: expression, experience, engineering, and exclusion. Each of this is being protected by the 4 main facets of IP: copyright, trademarks, patents, trade secrets. Let's start with copyright. What is copyright? What does it protect? Well, it protects expression. So what is expression then? It's when you take your idea from your head and make it into something tangible, something that can be seen, something that can be heard. So think along lines: books, music, performance arts, patents. So Lisa's kind example of the Singer sewing machine. It protects engineering. So these are solutions that are engineered to address problems, but they have to be novel. And what does novel mean? Novel means new. New as in never seen before, never heard before, never done before. And they must have commercial viability, which means they must be able to sell. So if you create something new to mow your own lawn, sorry, it's not a patent. Trade secrets, probably the easiest form of IP. It basically depends entirely on the owner's efforts to exclude others. So I'll give you an example. How many people here in the room know what the recipe for Coca-Cola is? Yeah, exactly. They locked it in the vault and put it deep underground. It's simple, but it's effective. Lastly, trademarks. Now, I think we all have a common understanding of what trademarks generally means. When I say trademarks, you think of getting a logo trademarked, going down to the registry. But I want to offer a bit more of a nuanced view of what trademarks actually are. And to help you understand this, I would like to bring up the age-old debate of Coke versus Pepsi, right? Just looking at this picture alone, how many people in the room would prefer to buy Coke? Can I get a show of hands? And how many people will buy Pepsi? Oh, overwhelming majority for Coke. And it's true. This study was ran multiple times over many years, right? And majority of the people, like the people in this room, always chose Coke. But when the test was done blindly, the blind taste test, it changed. More people chose Pepsi over Coke because they preferred the flavor. It's sweeter. So why is this? Why is this so? Like, why when we see the logo, we choose Coke? Well, there's an experience that we have between our brains and the brands. And trademark works to protect this experience. How consumers experience a brand, your brand, defines the value of your trademark. So this chemistry that we have with brands and logos, trademark works to protect this chemistry. But for there to be this chemistry, your brand must have these 4 elements: visibility, engagement, association, and it must anchor. Now, I think we all know what visibility is. It means being visible. So I don't know if you recall last Christmas, I don't know how many Coke ads I saw on my Disney Plus subscription. I see it everywhere as well, but not a lot of Pepsi ads. Engagement, well, I was going to use a Coke example, but I think Charlotte provided a really good example for engagement. So it's about being present, as you said, and engaging with your audience. So in the case of Singapore Airlines, when there's a disaster in Heathrow Airport, go down, talk to them, interact with your customers. But I want to draw your attention to association. And what does association actually mean? Well, when I throw you the brand name Coke, what do you think of? For me personally, I think of Coke, McDonald's, double cheeseburger, fries, no pickles, and a Coke, not a Pepsi. When I go to the pub, how many people love to go to the pub? We all do. I always order Bacardi and Coke, not a Bacardi and Pepsi. It's just weird. So you see how closely Coca-Cola has associated itself with these other brands that I interact with on a daily basis. And it's because of this association, plus the visibility and the engagement that Coke has had, that it anchors itself really deeply on me. And that's why when I go to the supermarket, when I go to Tesco, I always choose a Coke over Pepsi. So what? How does this all help? Well, in business valuation, when you're looking at your business, you have to understand that while all IPs are equal, some IPs are more equal than others. Let's take a look at this value framework. It was developed by Vanilla Law, which is a Singaporean-based law firm. They have had over 30 years working with SMEs. And throughout that 30 years, they have created this matrix where they want to show how customers perceive intellectual property and how experts perceive intellectual property. So you can see that customers value trademark the highest, experience, while experts value and they look at trade secrets the highest, exclusion. But I want to focus on customer perception. Why? Well, what do you think investors are more concerned with? Customer perception or expert perception? I heard some expert perceptions, I heard some metrics, but let me give you another way of thinking of it. When investors are evaluating your business, there's always a stage in investment. It's called the PMF, Product Market Fit. All right? And what they do in this stage is that they take your product or your service and they conduct a survey to see how well and how willing consumers are to buy your new product or service. So I hope this gives some indication, right, that investors, while they value expert perception, they tend to value customers more. They follow the customers because that's where the revenue is. And customers value experience the most. So, while all IPs are equal, trademark is more equal than others. And you should focus on your trademark. This ties into how GoSME can help. Well, profiling your brand or your trademark on our platform is free. You get visibility, right? You get to be engaging with the SME community. You are associating yourself with the wider SME community, right? And you are also, by doing all that, you are anchoring your brand closer to your consumers. I'd like to bring your attention back to the flow chart, the roadmap kindly provided by Mark Go earlier. And now you can see that there is a new perspective to this roadmap. So you can see how this roadmap not only benefits your perception to investors, but it also helps to benefit your perception to your consumers. As you can see, it helps prepare brands to be ready for public SME community visibility. Be visible, be engaging, be like Coke. I'd like to end off with a quote from Muhammad Yunus. I think Mark Go previously mentioned him. This is the full quote. When lending is built on trust within a community where people know and support each other, the need for collateral fades and the risk of default is dramatically reduced. I think the quote speaks for itself. I'd like you all to reflect a bit on it. And that will be all for my speech. Thank you so much.